In this video, I'm going to be going over the Wusthof Ikon Bread Knife and the Shun Premier Bread Knife. These are both the highest end knife lines that these respective companies offer, with the exception of some of their really limited edition, really high-end knives that aren't really sold as a regular set. With that said, there are a couple of major differences between the two, and I definitely have my own preference, as you guys all probably know already. But I want to give you guys sort of the similarities and dissimilarities in an unbiased manner, I think, and hopefully you guys can choose whichever knife you think is going to be the best for your purposes. These two knives are both high-end knives, and they're both in the same price range, and that's an important thing to consider, and it's why I'm making this video mainly. They're both forged, they're both handmade, and for the most part, that's a big deal. They also have the same cutting angles, relatively speaking. They're very similar cutting angles. The Wusthof uses an extremely sharp 14-degree cutting angle. The Shun uses a slightly less sharp, but still very sharp 16-degree cutting angle. The real difference starts to show up in terms of the metal they use for the blade. The Shun uses VG Max steel, which, as you all probably know, VG10 is like the gold standard in knife making. It's very hard, it's very resilient, and it holds an edge very well. The Wusthof, on the other hand, uses a very soft 58 hardness compared to the 61 hardness of the Shun, proprietary steel. And what that means is, especially with a thinner blade, a more delicate blade, it's going to wear much faster, it's going to need sharpening much more, and it's going to need to be honed much more often. And I think that's especially a thing to consider with a serrated knife that you can't really hone or sharpen as easily as a straight edge knife. On top of that, the Premier comes with 34 layers of stainless steel folded into the actual cutting blade, which gives you this gorgeous Damascus pattern on the bottom and also makes it almost impervious to rust and pitting and staining. On top of that, the upper half of the blade is hammered, which again looks beautiful, but also helps food release from the knife so you don't have to deal with sticking and stuff as you're cutting. Both knives, like I said, are serrated, and that's to help cut through bread cleanly and nicely. Both knives are serrated, and that's to help clean through bread cleanly and nicely. And both knives have full tangs all the way down. The Wusthof also has extra material added to the base, and that's to really add some extra heft towards the bottom so that it essentially falls into your hand as you're cutting with it and makes it feel a lot better. On top of that, both handles are really nice. They're both very ergonomic. The brown pakkawood handle on the Shun is actually a compressed resin-filled wood, and that makes it impervious to pitting and to staining and to things like that. And the handle on the Ikon is actually just plastic, triple riveted plastic essentially. With that said though, the handle on the Ikon is like the gold standard again for ergonomics. They've really designed it so that any way you're holding it, it just fits in amazingly and it feels almost like an extension of your hand. That's again not to say that the Premier is not comfortable. This is just insanely comfortable, if that makes sense. Now, aside from that though, both of these knives have lifetime warranties, and the interesting thing to note is that the Shun also has a lifetime of free sharpening tacked on, and I think that's sort of a deal breaker because, as you all know, with high-end knives, if you give them to someone who does it by hand, which you should be doing, a reputable sharpener, for a serrated blade it's going to cost you roughly $10 per inch to sharpen it, which means a 9-inch blade like this is going to cost you $90, and an 8-inch blade like this is going to cost you $80. And that's not even really considering the fact that you don't know the results you're going to get. There are always horror stories with knife sharpeners. With the Shun, you send it to them, they look at it, if they see any problems, they throw it away and they give you a brand new knife. But otherwise, you can rest easy knowing they're going to put the exact same edge back on the knife that you first fell in love with when you got it the first time. I think that, plus the fact that it's free, makes it a no-brainer. With that said, if you like the heftier sort of German-style knife, this is going to be a great choice for you. It's the best German-style knife you can buy. If you like the thinner, nimbler, lighter Japanese-style knife, the Premier line is an amazing line, and it's one of the knives I actually use in my house myself. But at the end of the day, if you don't really have a preference for the design, if they're both beautiful, and you really just want a great set of knives, I think that from a cost standpoint, a cost effectiveness standpoint, the Shun beats this 10 times out of 10. It uses a better steel, It has 34 layers of stainless steel wrapped into the metal, which makes it look gorgeous and makes it resilient. It has this gorgeous hammered finish that helps remove food from the blade. It has the pakkawood handle versus just plastic handle, and it comes with a lifetime of free